For many years, many of us have planned our Disney vacations around the crowds, but nowadays it feels like those lower crowd time of years don't really exist anymore. The big question today: where can you find those lower crowds? Now, the reason I put air quotes around lower crowds is because it's all about perspective. Maybe 10 years ago, low crowds meant something extremely different from what it means today. Today, low crowds means a 25 or 30-minute wait on Space Mountain. 10 years ago, maybe it meant a 10-minute wait. Now tell me I'm not the only one who remembers maybe the first week of school in September or perhaps early spring when the crowds would be almost non-existent. And in a way, we had Walt Disney World almost to ourselves. Those were good times, absolutely, no denying that at all, but in reality, those times no longer exist. Disney World is more crowded than ever, and there are a lot of thoughts about why that is. The leading theory is that when the economy does extremely well, as it's doing right now, you get a lot of people at Walt Disney World, and with time, these things shift back and forth. It's just the way of the world. Economies go up and down, and recessions, I don't know anything about it, but I just know the terms, and these things happen, and when you get kind of a boom and the economy is doing very well, more crowds come to Walt Disney World. So that being said, what can we do about it? Well, if you're a Disney enthusiast, I wouldn't let it get in the way of your Disney vacation, but if you're like me, you want to try and plan your vacation around the crowds. Now, knowing the economy is doing well right now, you get a lot of people at Walt Disney World, how can you go during a lower crowd time of year? Well, the standard rules still do apply. If you see a 3-day weekend off of school, it's likely going to be very crowded at Walt Disney World. If you're at Walt Disney World for the first week that school begins, or maybe early spring or after the holidays, January, you're going to find lower crowds, but it's all about perspective. As long as you go into it knowing that you're not going to see the same super low crowds that we saw maybe 10 years ago, you're going to be very happy. Absolutely. Just as long as you go into it with the right frame of mind. Now, we've talked about low crowd times of year, the best times of year to go, but what about those like secret low crowd times of year? One thing that I found very interesting living in the Orlando area that I didn't realize before, when a storm is set to hit the Orlando area close to Walt Disney World, the crowds at Walt Disney World thin out like never before. Now, under no circumstance am I suggesting that you come to Walt Disney World simply to catch that low crowd time right before a storm, because first of all, storms are extremely dangerous and should never be taken lightly. So I'm just making sure you know this information, not suggesting you plan your trip around it. Second, you never know how strong the storm is going to be, so if it really starts to strengthen, then it can really cause issues, the parks can close, and then you're not really, experiencing the magic at all. So that's another reason. But that's just something to keep in mind. Let's say you're here for a month. Let's say you've rented a house somewhere in Florida, you're here for a month, you see a big storm on its way, and you say to yourself, you know what, maybe now's a good time right before the storm, not during the storm. Cannot reiterate how safety is number one. I've said it before, gotta say it again. Safety is number one. Don't risk safety. I'm just saying, if maybe like 2 days before a storm is supposed to hit, you go to the parks, sometimes you'll find relatively low crowds. I want to say it again, safety is number one. The reason why the crowds are lower is because the storm is not safe. We don't know how unsafe it will be, but if you're already in a house, let's say you're a local, I'm saying this for the locals, also saying this for those maybe who are already here or plan their trip or here for longer periods of time. If you're somewhere safe, you know you're safe, you don't need to evacuate. If you're supposed to evacuate, please evacuate. But if you don't need to evacuate, the storm is maybe a category 1, not supposed to strengthen at all, you could go in a day or two before and see relatively low crowds. Another very interesting secret that we've all kind of learned since the opening of Rise of the Resistance, the opening of a new attraction brings in a lot of people, no question about it, especially something as incredible as Rise of the Resistance. But when you are around the park, when you're waiting for your virtual, queue to tag in, and you walk around, you can find extremely low crowds. For example, I went on Slinky Dog Dash, basically a walk-on the morning that Rise of the Resistance opened, just because everyone else was at Rise of the Resistance and I went over to Slinky Dog. It's a virtual queue, so you might as well. Just a quick tip there. Now, after hearing all this, you may be saying to yourself, Michael, that all sounds great, but I can't go when the school is just in session, or maybe I'm not there right before a minor storm is supposed to hit. Is there really a slow time of year? There's slower times of year, but those slow seasons, they don't really exist anymore. Now, I know you may be saying to yourself, Michael, that's not a good thing. In reality, it is a good thing for us in one way, one big way. The more crowds mean more money for Disney, which mean more attractions and more magical experiences. Tron, Rise of the Resistance, Remy, Cosmic Rewind, the list goes on. Disney is building these things because there are more people in the parks. Without the more people, we don't get these amazing attractions. So in my opinion, more people is not a bad thing. We just have to kind of learn the ins and outs of kind of finagling these vacations around the higher crowds. Now, if you're looking for the absolute best tips to make the most out of your vacation day at Walt Disney World, even with those higher crowds, think about the fast passes and how you experience Walt Disney World. Just one example. Let's say first thing in the morning, you want to make the most out of your vacation. You go to Hollywood Studios, you get that virtual queue, you immediately go to the Skyliner and have an entire day already set up in advance full of fast passes at Epcot. Then you experience some of a festival, see some of those resorts around, Yacht Club, Beach Club, Boardwalk. Then you make your way back on the Skyliner or walk or boat back to Hollywood Studios, experience Rise of the Resistance, and then maybe it's late magic hours right then and there. So you can still get a lot done in a Disney day, no doubt about it. It's just how you organize the day that has become more important than ever. Those are my thoughts about the lower crowd times at Walt Disney World. Let me know yours in the comments below. Do you like to wake up early or maybe get those fast passes way in advance? Like to see the resorts in the middle of the day? What is your strategy? I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Thank you so much for being a part of the magic with me. Until next time, have a magical day.